My name's Mezliak, married to Marion here, and we have one child, Stephen, and we live here in Fremont.
And I'm Marion Mezliak, and I'm his better half. And he said we have a teenage son who's a sophomore at Mission San Jose High School. And both of us are children of survivors. Both of my parents were Holocaust survivors, and both of Abe's parents were Holocaust survivors. And unfortunately, none of them are alive. Right. So that's what we're here to tell.
So when did your parents start telling you about their experiences in the Holocaust?
Well, it wasn't until I think in my 40s that they did, because it was not spoken about. There was too much, I think a lot of it was guilt. For the people that survived, there was a sense of guilt that they survived, and they didn't want to talk about it. And also, they were traumatized. And so it took me to try to pull it out of them once I knew that people were starting to ask questions, and so I started asking.
And for me, it was always talked about, though it wasn't always talked about in English. As I said, I grew up in Canada, and my parents would have other survivors. We did live, there was a lot of other Jewish people in the community, and they'd come over, they'd talk about things. So I'd catch snippets of it, and my parents told me the general stuff, that what they'd been through briefly, how they survived, and they went on. They didn't really dwell too much on all the details because I was younger, and my father unfortunately died when I was 16, so the time when I would have really wanted to know the details and they would have been maybe more willing to share that, unfortunately I didn't have that information from him.
And can you tell us anything about your parents' experience that they told you?
Well, I can, my father did explain pretty much everything that happened from the time that they learned that they were going to be deported or moved into work camps, in my father's case in Greece, to all of his experiences. And I got glimpses on how he was able to survive by his behavior and his attitude and his mindset and his strength. On my mother's side, also, she was willing to tell me that she volunteered to try to save her family, and that told me a lot about her and her strength and willingness to help out. But I got a lot of details, but of course, it's only word of mouth, and they were the only ones that could tell me what happened. With my father's family, he had two older siblings that I believe in the late 1920s, and again I'm still working on finding out, they actually emigrated to Palestine, which became Israel at the time, and they were able to get out. But my father was younger, and he stayed with his parents and several other siblings. And from that group, only my father survived, and he went to a Russian forced labor camp. My mother was from Lask, Poland, from very nice city, from pretty well-to-do, educated family. I mean, it was kind of unheard of for girls to go to school, and I found a picture that you can look at later of actually my mom in her little schoolgirl clothes, must be in the 1920s, with her sister. Those two were the only ones who survived from their immediate family, and an older sister who did not, who was, when they rounded up the Jews, they put a lot of her family members in the church, and they set it on fire, and that sister had a young child. Then they went to the Lodz ghetto, the ghetto where they were all crammed in. They tried to have life and, do things and try and keep it. And normally at the beginning it was that way, but then after a point, the ghetto was disbanded and they were sent to Auschwitz, which was really a horrible, horrible camp. And my mom said, I remember one thing she said, she recalled that she was on her way to being gassed, and that's when they were liberated. So she and her sister were the only ones who survived.
Do you think your life would be different if your parents had not gone through the Holocaust?
Well, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I was explaining that, to our son the other day. I said, there must be some major plan. I don't know, because you're here, and you're only here because your dad and I met, and your dad and I wouldn't even be here if there hadn't been this awful thing. But somehow his parents came together, and my parents came together. So, it's not a good reason. I mean, I wish it hadn't happened. I'd rather not be in existence. So, that's a tough question. But they went through this horrible experience, and I grew up never having any grandparents, having very few relatives, and that's pretty miserable life. But yet they tried to make it the best they could, and do what they could for their children, and go on and live life, and do cultural events, and have us belong to the temple, or the synagogue. So we went on, and that's part of the way I am. You just kind of, things knock you down. It's not always pleasant, but you have to pick yourself up and keep going.
For me, I think I would be a totally different person. All through my life, this feeling of being different, dealing with parents that suffered so much and were still alive, but emotionally not. The only way they could survive is to shut down their emotions, and it was impossible to bring them back. Trying to understand who I was and what the world was like, what the world was based on that experience was difficult. And even with people that were the same religion as me, those that were born here, they couldn't understand me, and it was difficult to make friends and deal with that.
Again, and we've seen that in Darfur, we're seeing that in Libya, we're seeing that in a lot of countries right now. So it's not, ours was a unique, was the final solution. It was a plan to wipe every Jew off the face of the earth. But, there are also terrible Holocausts happening and have happened, and we've got to stop all of that.
I think that in this age of instant communication, the fact that somehow Facebook had an impact in Egypt's freedom, the more people know that this is going on, and the more people understand that we're all part of the whole. And if one piece gets ill, we're all going to be affected. People don't have that feeling. But as more and more we realize that we're part of this earth, and the information flows, these dictators can't hide what they're doing to their people, then I think they're good.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you. It's appreciated as well.
Thank you for listening and asking some really great questions. And, I hope you take this and spread the word and tell other students, about what happened in the Holocaust, and maybe, again, get involved in your own causes for the future and do great things.